Hello, this is Brian from Cutter Pros. Today we are going to take a look at the CR730 vinyl cutter from Creation. It's very similar to the CR730, CR1300, CR1201, CR631. They're all using the same electronics. The only thing different between those sometimes is the color and the keypads. So, what comes in the box? You see here we have a power cord, we have the USB cable, we have a blade holder, which is this piece, and we have a pen holder. The pen holder comes with a pen installed in it. And then we have three blades, red, yellow, blue tip. I try not to get too set on the color on the cap. One is a 45 degree, one is a 30 degree, and one is a 60 degree. And what's important is that before you install a blade in a vinyl cutter, you always want to take a look at the tip of the blade. And you're going to do that with a magnifying glass. I have my handy dandy magnifying glass here. And you can tell just by looking at the tip of the blade which one is the sharpest, which would be a 60, which one is the least aggressive, which would be the 30, and the 45 should be fairly obvious. And we use these different blades for different materials. 45 degree is a general purpose blade. You'll use it for general signed vinyl, cast or calendared, and then most heat transfer materials. The 60 degree blade is the sharpest, and you're going to use that for thicker materials. Paint mask and sand mask, carbon fiber, glitter, these types of materials. And then the 30 degree is used mostly for window tint. What comes with the cutter are standard steel blades. You can also get carbide blades, which are more expensive and are much sharper and last a lot longer. We highly recommend the carbide blades for window tint film, very common use for these vinyl cutters. So next I will show you how to install the blade into the blade holder. Okay, so here we have the blade holder, and I'm going to unscrew this plastic guard all the way. There's a lot of threads. Just keep unscrewing it until it finally releases. Inside, this is the actual part that holds the blade holder. This brass nut here, this is used to lock against the plastic guard. So we're going to I'm going to choose the red one here. I believe this is the 45 degree. So you take off the plastic cap. Again, always check with the magnifying glass to make sure the tip of your blade is good. When you're doing cutting with a vinyl cutter, vinyl is very thin. It's only 2-3 mils thick of an inch. And so you're only using the very tip of the blade. The very 3-4 mils of the blade is the only part that actually does the cutting. The rest is kind of not used. And you won't be able to tell if the blades are damaged by looking at them with the naked eye. Only with a magnifying glass are you going to see if there's any damage on the actual tip. And so always inspect before putting them in the blade holder. If you drop this on the floor, the tip of the blade is very fragile and it's very easy to be damaged. So blade side out, and stick that all the way down in there like that. And then we're going to put the cap back on and screw it all the way down. And so very often we're questioned how much of the tip of the blade should be exposed. It doesn't take much of the blade, as I mentioned. We're only cutting with the very tip 3-4 mils of the blade. You only want a little bit of the blade exposed. Something in the neighborhood of the width of a credit card, which is about a 32nd of an inch. When you have that much exposed, then what you want to do is rotate the brass lock nut on the back to lock the position in place. So something in the neighborhood of this. Hopefully that's visible. You can see just a little bit of the tip of the blade is needed. Okay, so I'm going to install this in the vinyl cutter. So your vinyl cutter, these have a lid that pops up, so we can carefully pull this up and the lid will pivot. I recommend not pulling them up too far because we have cables here on the right hand side from the keypad that go through down to the motherboard. And the more you open and close this lid, the more you flex these cables and you can possibly cause damage. So the blade holder goes into the rear hole. There's two holes here. It goes into the rear hole. With this thumb screw, you're going to loosen up the clamp. You're going to place the blade holder into the clamp. You notice my finger, I'm holding the blade the clamp up. Push this all the way down until it bottoms out on the flange, and then gently tighten this. So it doesn't have to be tightened really tight. The forces involved here are very low, and if you over tighten it too much, you'll actually break the clamp in the back. Alright, so next what we want to do is we want to give a little tutorial here about the keypad and the controls on the vinyl cutter. So I'm going to turn this on. Now I already have it connected to the computer, so when it comes on, it's going to initialize, connect to the computer. You heard the computer recognize that it's connected, and it's going to go online. So when it's in the online mode, it's online listening to the computer for commands. What we want to do is we want to take it offline with the online button. Press that. And then we get X equal, Y equal. And what that means is we're allowed to move this around with the arrow key. So if we move left and right, it'll move the carriage left and right. Front and back, we'll roll the rollers front and back. Wherever we leave this is where it's going to start cutting from. Vinyl cutters cut from right to left across the travel of the cutter. So what you want to do is you want to use the material here. If you cut a decal here and then you have more vinyl to the left, move the carriage over next time and start here, and then start cutting here from right to left until you've used up all the vinyl. So that's the keypad for movement and controls of the carriage and the roller bar. If we press this mode button here, you'll see it's going to go to force. So force can be changed with plus and minus. These vinyl cutters all cut by force. So more force means a deeper cut, less force means a shallower cut. So for this we're going to turn it down. It was at 150, that's pretty high. We're going to start at something in the neighborhood of 80. So the goal with any vinyl cutter here is to try and use as least force as possible to do the cutting. You want to cut just so the top layer of the material is cut through and not cut into the substrate any more than you need to. Any extra force is going to go down into the substrate and cause extra drag on the vinyl, which will decrease your cutting accuracy. So as little force as possible is best. Also, we always want to start from a low force and build up. And the reason is because if we start from a high force, we might go all the way through the material on the first try. If we do that, we're going to cut into this Teflon cutting strip here. This Teflon cutting strip is here to protect your blade in the event that you use too much force, but it also supports the back of the vinyl. And so in the event that you cut through the vinyl and you cut into the Teflon cutting strip and it's too deep and you create a bunch of gouges in the Teflon cutting strip, then it's not going to support the vinyl as well and you're going to get uneven cutting. Where there's damage in the strip, it's going to cut too deep. Where there's no damage in the strip, it'll cut normal, and then you'll have uneven cutting depending on where the damage is. So the next setting in here, if I hit the mode button, you'll see it'll go to cut speed. So cut speed isn't really calibrated in terms of inches per second or millimeters per second. It's just a relative number. 90 is the highest, and then I believe it goes down to 10. For window tint and things like that, you want to cut something mid-speed like a 40. Other materials like normal sign vinyl, you can cut at max speed, which is 90. As we go through the mode button here, you'll see the type, 730. There's scale factors. You don't really need to play with those unless you're trying to scale the cutter to get like a 1 inch by 1 inch box coming out exactly 1 inch by 1 inch. For now, accept the defaults. feed direction, y-axis, is some drivers are written with the X and Y inverted for some different softwares. If they are, you can change the y-axis on this cutter. The default is Y. I would keep it at Y unless your graphics are coming out mirrored. Then switch the Y axis, the feed direction axis, to the X axis, and then it should come out correct. And then we press mode again, and we're back to the start. So I'm going to move this to the left a little bit, and I'm going to put it back online. And now it's back online. Now it's listening to the computer for commands again. So the next thing we want to take a look at here, that's the keypad. I'm going to raise this up a little bit. The pinch rollers. One of the really nice things about the CR series cutters is they have a full-length sandbar all the way across the cutter. And you can see this goes end to end. With the exception of this little middle point here where the bars connect, and on the CR1300 there's actually two of these little points, connection points. Don't put the rollers here, but the rollers can go anywhere along the length of the sandbar. So the rollers just slide on the track. I've got my hand behind it, kind of moving it. It's got a lever to raise and lower them. So here I can put them anywhere I want. And this is really nice because for different size materials, what's desired is to have pinch rollers on the outside edges of the material. So wherever you put the material, you can always put them right on line with the edges of the material. And that makes it really nice for these. The other thing that's nice about the CR series is you can hear the hum. It's actually a fan vacuum system. So there's a vacuum system that pulls down right along the length of the sandbar, which is exactly where you want the vacuum. So some vinyl cutters that do have vacuums have holes and stuff drilled offset. So they're pulling it down over here, but it's actually being driven over here. What you really want is the vacuum right around where it's being driven, and that's perfect for this cutter. And that's a couple of the reasons why it makes it nice for window tint. So we can put these pinch rollers right along the edges of the material, and then put a light force pinch roller, or 2 or 3, in the center just to keep the material down. So in this case I have some nice pink vinyl. I'm going to feed the vinyl from the back, and I don't have the stand set up for this cutter, but if you have the stand, then your vinyl would be on the stand. So you feed the material from the back. So notice on the right side here I've got some gap in my material from the edge of the cutter on both sides. So you always want to have a gap. You never want to put your vinyl right along the edge of the plate here, otherwise it's going to bind. So once we have our vinyl in there, we can put our pinch rollers right in the right spots, right along the edges. There they go. And then one in the middle, and as I mentioned, not on the transition point between the rollers, and you can kind of feel where that is. That's right here. So I'm going to put my pinch roller there, and that should be good. So that's how you set up the vinyl. With the vinyl in there, like I said, you can roll it with the rollers, taking it offline. And take it offline, I get the X, Y equals 0. So I can use the arrows and you can see the vinyl moving in and out like that. For alignment, if we're cutting small things, we're not too concerned about alignment of the material to the cutter because we can always move things around a little bit as we cut. If we're going to cut something really long, what you'll want to do is you want to roll out some vinyl with the keypad like this, and you'll want to watch the edge here to make sure that it's lined up well with the ruler. And so if you're going to cut something that's a couple yards, roll in a couple yards and make sure that the edge doesn't move off the pinch roller, so you're lined up well within the length of cut that you're intending to do. So I'm going to put this back. Let's see here, right about there. We'll put it back online again. So now it's connected to the computer. So one other thing I didn't mention about the keypad up here is that you have a reset button. So this reset button here, it doesn't do much. What does reset the cutter actually are these limit switches. So if you look at the cutter, there is a limit switch, a red limit switch on the right here, and a red limit switch on the left, right here. And so to reset this cutter, always what you're going to do is you're going to press the two red limit switches at the same time. So take your fingers, press them once, and you'll hear the computer lose connection and re-pick up the connection as the cutter resets. So very often with these cutters, we get jobs stuck in them. Anytime the driver changes on the computer, which is sometimes often with the BOSA driver, Windows will do an update. It'll auto-install the BOSA driver instead of the CutterPros driver. You got to go back in and change it to the CutterPros driver. When you do that, the cutter gets confused sometimes. So always reset it with these two red limit switches right here. And that clears all the jobs in its memory, and it connects to the driver correctly. So next, it's all set up. Got it on a force of, I think I left it at about 80. Here we can do, I have this set up with Vinyl Master. So Vinyl Master is one of several programs that'll run this cutter. Flexi Starter with Tint Tech is very common as well. And then there's SignCut and a couple others. So there's another video I have on setting up the drivers. Please watch that video as well. Here I just typed some text. I typed test, and what you will hear is you just go to the little icon that looks like a blade, and you're going to send to cutter. And I've already got it connected to the CR730. I'm going to hit cut now, and I'm going to proceed with cutting, and it's going to do my cut of the word test. Then when it's done, you can take it offline by pressing the online button. Use your arrows to bump it out, and then you can see that it cut the word test. So that concludes our discussion on the CR730 series, the hardware setup. If you have any questions, please contact us at CutterPros Tech Support. That's support@cutterpros.com, or come on to our website, cutterpros.com. In the bottom right corner, click on the live chat button, and we'll help you out. Thanks for your time.